You're listening to a Brawl Network production. This is a podcast for the best fans in the NFL.
Are you in the Mafia?
Am I in the what?
It's time for a Bills Brawl podcast.
Second down and 7. Kelly with the tide. Touchdown! Bill Brooks.
Allen. Deep shot. Touchdown! On the line to Stephon Diggs.
And Thurman breaking tackles at the 22. Inside the 10. Touchdown Buffalo.
Mike Lindsley back with you here on the Bills Brawl, all part of the Brawl Network. Get us all over the social media platforms and, of course, at Bills Brawl for all of your latest and greatest Bills content. You can hit me on Twitter as well, at Mike L. Sports. Super excited to bring onto the program a former Buffalo Bill in his own right, 2012 to 2016. He also played for the Bears, Steelers, and Giants. A Northwestern grad, of course. 84 tackles in his career, 2.5 sacks, a really nice role player. And he signed with the Bills in, right on New Year's Eve, 2012, if Bills fans remember that, and wore the number 97. And we're going to talk about his Bills days and some of the favorite moments from 2020 watching as well. It is nose tackle for a long time in the NFL, former Buffalo Bill Corbin Bryant. Corbin, how are you?
Hey, I'm glad to be here, man, and glad to answer some questions about my time in Buffalo and some other things.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's start with that, right? Like, as a former Bill, how much enjoyment did you have in 2020 watching this team? You must have had a blast like the rest of us.
I mean, it was incredible. Just, being there for 5 years and actually embracing the city and being a part of building something great. It was awesome to see, especially for my former teammate Jerry, for him to make it that far. I think it was absolutely amazing to watch.
So, you hear this from a lot of players, current players, past players. There's a moment where whether they bought in right away or it took them a little while to get used to Buffalo, where you fall in love with the city of good neighbors. You fall in love with the wings and the people and the feeling and the mafia and the passion. When did you have the Bills moment? Like, wow, this is home for me.
Man, honestly, it was my first game there in 2013. Obviously, when you play the New England Patriots, the whole stadium just explodes. Like, I had never been a part of a group of, a team that had a group of fans behind them. The people are crazy, but they are awesome. They love the team. Like, you can just feel the support from the crowd. And, that game, obviously, we didn't come out on top. It's so hard to beat Brady, but, the crowd was just probably the best crowd I've ever been a part of.
That guy Brady's still doing it, still winning Super Bowls, man. What the heck? I mean, can you believe it?
I can definitely believe it. I watch his things that he does with his diet, the way he trains, and the way quarterbacks aren't able to get hit anymore.
There you go. Yeah. I knew you were going to take a shot at that. I love it.
Quarterbacks can't get hit anymore, but hey, that's just the way of the NFL now.
Yeah. Corbin Bryant with his former Buffalo Bill here. It's the Bills Brawl. I'm Mike Lindsley. Do you talk to your former teammates a lot? Do you keep in touch with guys, Corbin?
Not as much as I used to. I've been away for, I want to say about 3 years now. But, we talk on Instagram and things like that. But not as much on the phone and things like that. But we keep up with each other on social media.
Yeah. What makes in your case, obviously, playing up front and all that, and now things are so different, defensive line-wise, right? You got to kind of be versatile. Sometimes you get moved around and whatever. What, in your opinion, though, for like a traditional nose tackle, what do you think makes a great nose tackle?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think there is a traditional nose tackle anymore. I think that
I agree
has been gone with the dinosaurs. Honestly, it was starting around the times when when I was playing nose tackle at 6'3", 300 pounds, we say, hey, Corbin, get in there and play nose. And I'm like, okay, but like this game is definitely more of a passing league than a running league. So really you have your three techniques, your, kind of traditional nose is playing that area as well. So you really, when you come to the NFL, you have to be a versatile player, for every position other than quarterback, honestly.
Yeah, in the game today, defensively, what do you see where you wish you still could get out there, and what do you see where you're like, man, I am so glad I'm not playing this offensive blast here,
Yeah. What I see on some days, I see guys getting excited, during the pregame. I see guys making big plays. As a former player, you miss that kind of stuff. But what you don't miss is on Mondays when you're limping out of bed and you can't walk and you crawl into the training room and stuff like that. But, Sundays, that's something that any player that has played in the NFL will never forget.
It's interesting because a lot of players, I think if you polled a lot of former players, wherever they played, whatever city, team, etc., had success, didn't have success, or somewhere in the middle, a lot of the cliche question of what do you miss most about the game, I would say 8 or 9 out of 10 guys, Corbin, would say the guys, the locker room, the inside stuff, the camaraderie, the trips. Is that the same for you?
Oh, yeah, no question. When you're in the locker room, and you can even push this on back into college, you're away from the coaches, you can say what you want, you can talk about the coaches, you can talk about how good or how bad the game plan is, you have your ping pong table, you have your, pop
darts,
shots,
right.
That. You can kind of just, you can kind of just chill and be yourself, whereas sometimes, when you're on the field and, you got to kind of watch what you say and do because, the coaches are around. And so, the locker room is definitely the place to be.
No doubt, no doubt. Corbin Bryant, the former Bill, with us here on the Bills Brawl, all part of the Brawl Network. Just a couple more for you here, Corbin. You're a Chicago, Illinois, born, bred, raised. You stayed home, went to Northwestern, right? You were an undrafted player going into the NFL, and that's one of the beautiful things about that league. You can go undrafted. You get picked up as a undrafted free agent by none other than your hometown team, the Bears. Unheralded stories like that. We hear about guys in the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, undrafted free agents, and you make your mark in the league for a long time. What was that time like for you in July of 2011, I believe late? You get signed on with the Bears and off you go in the NFL.
Yeah, honestly, it was really stressful because I think 2 weeks before, and then, everybody that interviews me, they don't know this. I strained my calf or something, and I didn't pass the physical, so I got let go in Chicago, and then Pittsburgh liked me enough to pick me up and bring me into their training camp. So honestly, and I didn't get a sign-up bonus, so I was like, okay, this is my only chance in a sense. So I go out there and I just give it all that I have. And, I knew I had the talent to do it, but I really had to fight through an injury my entire training camp of my rookie year. And I was able to make a good enough impression on them to stay in Pittsburgh for a year and a half and then get picked up in Buffalo and stay there for about 5 years. So it was definitely a journey, but it was definitely stressful.
No doubt. So you go 2012 to 16, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, quick math, it's 5 years in Buffalo. I believe you had the last year of Chan Gailey, you had Doug Marrone, and then Rex Ryan.
Right.
How difficult is it? You played during a time that was the drought time where there's GMs in and out, head coaches in and out, defensive coordinators in and out, tons of change across the board. Nothing seems consistent whatsoever because the Bills are just losing all the time. How difficult is it two-part question to close, how difficult is it to play in that situation? And then now when you look at it, you must be a little envious of the players because they've got McDermott for a while, Bean for a while, Dable's back, Frazier. The Bills are starting to build continuity now. That's got to be a big deal when you're in the middle of all that losing. You don't have any consistency with coaches, systems, and all that.
Yeah, when you look at it, the name of the NFL game, I think, is continuity, other than you can scratch this year out because of, COVID. But, every year, if you look at all the champions and all the teams that do well, They all have continuity. You know, you look at, you know, a Pittsburgh, you look at a New England, you know, you look at teams like that. They always have the same coaches, the same people, and teams that are always firing guys and getting new guys in, and you know, not being able to keep their players. Those are the teams that struggle. And now that, you know, Buffalo, you know, when Sean got there, you know, it was okay. They were, you know, building up. I believe they made the playoffs, but like every year, you can see that team continue to get better and better. And you know, with that same consistency, Buffalo's gonna be around for years to come. Just because they have the coach and they have the quarterback too, and they have a great general manager, in my opinion, that can make great decisions.
Yeah, and you had played for 2 years before the Bills, so did you notice, like, you're in Pittsburgh 2 years right away, you know, you at the beginning of your career, you're getting continuity, then you went to Buffalo. It was like right. two sides of the coin there. You must have noticed right away what the differences were.
Oh, yeah. I mean, being in Pittsburgh, I mean, it was honestly, for me, a blessing in disguise because you're there with, you know, veterans like the Beard, you know, and Aaron Smith and Casey Hampton.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys have been there for almost a decade. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about doing the same thing over and over and over again. So it's easy for them. Yeah. And then I go to Buffalo, and, I mean, it just seemed like a place that was in disarray until I think the second year that Marone was there. I think we started to get better, and then he all of a sudden left. Yep. And then we had to start over again. See, I honestly, in my opinion, I think if Marone would have stayed, you know, we would have been a lot better off.
I like Marone a lot.
That's just an opinion of mine.
Yeah, I like Corbin. I like Marone. I covered Syracuse football forever, and when he was in Syracuse, he was an instant impact guy. I mean, they changed quite a bit. They got professional. They went to a couple pinstripe bowls. They won them. The pipeline back to the NFL was strong. I'm a huge Doug Marone fan.
Yeah, I think when Rex did come, it was kind of a blessing in disguise as well because he brought the same system that we ran with Mike Pettin, because, you know, him and Mike Pettin are like buddies.
Yep.
So they run the same thing. So that kind of helped in a sense. But still, that same kind of, you know, the coaching continuity, you know, you're hearing different type of terminology from coaches, different terminology from everybody in a sense. So that makes it difficult. But that's the thing about the NFL. You got to be able to adapt on the run. Yeah,
let me sneak in this one in the final minute or so. I got to, you know, ask you this for my listeners, and they're all huge Bills fans. What are you doing now, Corbin?
Oh, right now I'm working with youth athletes. Cool. So I work at a youth sports company called Lake Point Sports. It's in northwest Georgia, just north of Atlanta. Okay. And we host like the biggest AAU and baseball tournaments in the country. And you know, we make sure that they have a great place to play, a great place where they can get some good training, and a place where they can get some good mentoring as well. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing with my time these days. Still staying in sports, just not hurt.
There you go. And hey, you know what? Hat tip to you, too, because after all these years, you know, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Buffalo, the Giants, growing up in Chicago, you finally got the weather on your side, man. You woke up to the weather, huh?
I know. The weather's been bad down here the last couple of days, but I'm not going to complain. In Chicago right now, I think it's 7 degrees. So
yeah, Yeah, no doubt. Well, he had a really nice career in the NFL, Northwestern product, undrafted 2011. Fought his way through, though, played for the Bears, Steelers, Bills, and the New York Football Giants, the former nose tackle of the NFL, Corbin Bryant. Corbin, thanks for a few minutes here on the Bills Brawl. Continued success, bud.
All right, thanks a lot.
The Bills Brawl under the Brawl Network. Make sure you follow us all over social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc. You know the drill, and you can follow us on Twitter at Bills Brawl specifically, and make sure that you do hit us at Network Brawl for all of the podcasts covering teams in the NFL and beyond, at Network Brawl and at Bills Brawl on Twitter. Cannot wait to chat some more Buffalo Bills with our next guest. Corbin Bryant, by the way, was terrific. It's the one and only Ryan Talbot on Twitter at Ryan Talbot Bills, the sensational Buffalo Bills insider and reporter for New York Upstate. He and Matt Perino do a terrific job. Make sure you grab their pod off the major platforms as well. Ryan Talbot also happens to be a graduate of St. Bonaventure, so, he's got that going for him as well. Ryan Talbot, how are you, bud?
Hey, everything's great here. Thanks for having me on.
No doubt. So I know that you recently came out with your, round one mock ideas and some things that the Bills could do in this upcoming NFL draft. You have a trade down, is that correct?
That is correct. I think number 30 is a really good spot for Buffalo in terms of another team maybe moving up to get a quarterback. In round one, it's important to grab a quarterback if you can, because then you have that fifth-year option that you can control. And obviously, Buffalo does not need a first-round pick for a quarterback. So if they can move down, add another day two pick in there to get more prospects in the door, fill in some needs, get some young guys that can potentially be plug-in and start type of players, especially when you're going to have a lot of high salaries here in these next few years with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Trey White, list goes on and on. It's really important to do so if you can.
Yeah, and as far as all those contracts and moving money and all the things that we've talked about, and I know as we record this, we're waiting on what the cap number actually is coming off of the Corona season. Where do you go? Just kind of take the floor in terms of, who to cut, where to save, most important pieces. I almost kind of land on, there's no way you can't have Feliciano up front. He would be just a guy who comes right out, to the top of the mind that you have to keep that guy.
Yeah, I'll start with the cut candidates. Looking across this team, guys like John Brown, I think that he needs to go. Almost $8 million in cap savings if you released him. And he had a career year in 2019, had some injury issues this past season. Buffalo's offense was fine without him. You would still have Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, Gabriel Davis. And then, if you want speed, you could bring in a Kenny Stills, someone who was on your practice squad for a few weeks at a much lower cost. You could try to target a John Ross, someone who, when he's on the field, when he's healthy, he's made some big plays down the field. He scored some touchdowns. He's obviously never lived up to being a top 10 pick in this in the NFL draft when he was with the Bengals. But I think, there's going to be some players that say, boy, I need to reestablish my value, and I could do that in Buffalo with a guy like Josh Allen. Lee Smith, that saves you about a little over $2 million if you cut him. He's pondering retirement. I'm not sure you have a role for him going forward. And then defensively, I think you really need to attack the defensive line in terms of who to get rid of. I think Mario Addison is a prime cut candidate. When you signed him last year, you said, okay, he hasn't hit that wall yet. He was still averaging almost 9 sacks per season. That didn't happen this year. And you could point to the fact that there's no off season. They didn't have time to gel. But worst case scenario, you want to try to get younger, in my opinion, this offseason. So if you cut him, and let's just say you miss out on J.J. Watt, I guess that really wouldn't help in terms of getting younger. There are some players in free agency that you could go after that contributed just about the same in terms of sack numbers. Romeo Aquara actually had 10 sacks this past season with Detroit. He's a guy that you could target. Carl Lawson, only 5.5 sacks, but over 30 quarterback hits last year in Cincinnati. Only expected to make a little bit less than $9 million per season on average. I think that's an upgrade over what you're getting out of Mario Addison. I think that Vernon Butler could go. He didn't really live up to that contract. Quentin Jefferson would be a very tough call. I feel like he came on at the end of the year. He flashed at times, but that's also a big number there that you could also maybe part ways with and try to find someone at a replacement level that can be a part of a rotation but isn't costing you so much money.
How would you assess the running backs going into next season?
I would keep it as is, and I know that's not a popular opinion. If anything, I would be looking again for a lower-tier free agent. A guy like Devontae Booker comes to mind. I have him in this article that I'm writing right now. That might be out. That'll be out some point this week in terms of what I would do if I was Brendan Beat. It wasn't the running backs, in my opinion, that cost this team in terms of their effectiveness on the ground. I think that the blocking in front of them was poor, especially in the interior of the line. I think that the fact that neither back could really get into a rhythm because you're giving each guy about 8 or 9 carries, that affects your rhythm, that affects how well you run the ball. In my opinion, there's a lot of little things.
So I don't think that Zach Moss and Devin Singletary are the reason they couldn't run the ball. So I think there are a lot of little factors that added up. So keep them. Let Antonio Williams take on that Tywan Jones role. Jones is a free agent this year. I don't know if you need to bring him back again. Williams was the special teams MVP in his final season at North Carolina, so he can step up in that area. He looked pretty good in terms of running the ball in Week 17 against Miami, in a game that Miami needed to win. Now, mind you, by the time he came in the second half, Buffalo had already built a pretty big lead. I think maybe Miami was demoralized, but he ran the ball well. Christian Wade has been a popular fan favorite. This would be the one season that if he's going to play and contribute, it would have to be this upcoming year. So you do have some players there. I just don't think that it was, hey, these guys are below average backs, that's why they couldn't run. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Singletary tied for the league average in yards per carry as a rookie. So there's something there. It's just that the blocking was not as strong. They went into this season saying we've got to protect Josh Allen because we're going to sling the ball around a lot. And in that area, Buffalo's offensive line was great. But when they tried to run the ball, I feel like they couldn't really get that push.
There's no doubt. And I think, too, there were... It was kind of like little things here and there, right? Like minor miscues. I mean, the Zach Moss fumble at San Fran, B gets benched. He rebounds great. I mean, he had a bunch of carries and helped wear down teams, fourth quarter drives. Denver, Pittsburgh, the 7-minute plus drives we saw at the end of the year. And then he got hurt. I mean, it's just injuries happen. Singletary, couple of key drops late, couple of fumbles. I almost look at it as, maybe with a little bit of coaching and another year of seasoning, Ryan, these guys are 22, 23 years old. They're not coming right into the league as, a top, like as a Saquon Barkley, for example. They're going to have their growing pains. And to me, a little bit of miscue here and there, you improve, you work on it in the offseason, you get that extra coaching, which all of it's the same. You go into next year, fresh slate. I don't think that's that big of a deal. And oh, by the way, let's get this 60-40, 50-50, 65-35, 70-30 nonsense out of here with passing, running, add way more running. It's a pass league. The Bills threw it as well as anybody in the league, and they were one win from the Super Bowl. Let's not get carried away with, running the ball a ton more.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I know that a lot of early mock drafts have Najee Harris as a Bills target, but then you're taking running backs to 3 years in a row in the draft, and 3 years in a row, between day 1 and 2, Harris would be the only day 1 pick. Obviously, Singletary and Moss would come on day 2. And then all of a sudden, one of those backs would be your number 3, possibly inactive if they don't play in special teams. That just doesn't make sense to me. I don't see Brendan Bean doing that. I do seem like best player available, so I'm not going to say never say never. I just don't see it working out that way. I think the Bills are going to try to get more physical up front, though. And I know you mentioned Feliciano. He recently came out and said, I know I'm a free agent, but I don't see myself playing anywhere but Buffalo in 2021 or 2020. Yeah, 2021, I should say. I'm not sure. I'm not willing to say that he's an upgrade because he's not, but I don't know how much of a downgrade he is. But here's what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to re-sign him. I think that Mitch Morse all of a sudden becomes expendable as a post-June 1st designation. You cut him, and it's not that Morse cannot play at a high level. He is still playing at a very high level. He's more of a finesse player. He is not a power center. He's not someone that's going to bowl you over. That's just not his game. But 2, I think that the team has legitimate concussion concerns about him. He had some before he signed with the team, before they made him the highest paid center in the league. In his first season, before the regular season even started, he suffered a concussion that kept him out a lot of the lead up to the regular season week 1. And then this past year, he suffered one as well. So I think the Bills can say we can save some money here. We can sign Feliciano for not as much money per year on average. We can play him at center. We could draft a guy that has guard center versatility. Quinn Meaners is someone that comes to mind. Wisconsin Whitewater product that you can get on probably early day 3 of the draft, although he played really well at the Senior Bowl. But you can bring in someone like that. You're going to have Cody Ford that I think that they like as a guard. You're going to have Ike Butker is another guy that I think they're going to bring back as a restricted free agent. So I think they want to get more physical up front, and that's one way you can do it.
Bills Insider at Ryan Talbot. Bills on Twitter. A couple more for you here, Ryan T. The thing that happened in 2020 that came way out of nowhere for this Bills team, something you completely and utterly didn't have on the radar that happened.
Oh, boy, that's a great question. Something I didn't, maybe I might go with the fact that I thought Dawson Knox was going to have a bigger role in this offense. And I'm not blaming the guy. He was drafted for his skill set. There was a lot of hype about him, though, leading up to the year. The fact that John Brown said, he's going to be the X factor for this team. Josh Allen comes out and says he's going to be a top 10 tight end in 2020. And neither of those things really happened. And, the obvious answer for your question would be Josh Allen's ascension, the fact that he made such a big jump. But we did see improvement from year 1 to year 2. Now, did I see him making this kind of improvement? Almost, 10% in terms of completion percentage, being number 2 in MVP voting? No, I did not see that. But I also did see him on an upward trajectory. I guess I'm going to go against the grain because I think that's the obvious answer. I thought I'd see a little bit more out of Dawson Knox. Now, to his credit, he came on late in the year towards the playoffs. I think that he is someone that can still be a contributor this year, but I wouldn't be shocked if they go out and they sign a Gerald Everett in free agency, or if Kyle Rudolph gets cut by the Vikings, I could see him being a veteran fit, someone who will be there short term that can help Knox. Dan Arnold in Arizona for a little bit less money than those guys. There's some options out there. I just think that right now they kind of know, okay, we can't put too much on his plate right now. He is still developing as a player in terms of he wasn't much of a factor at Ole Miss in college. They were a passing offense, but they went to the wide receivers. We need to make sure that we're developing this guy the right way, but we also have someone that can contribute to that position. So, like I said, Josh Allen, his ascension is the obvious answer there, but I'm going to go the opposite way and say I was a little disappointed in what we saw out of Dawson Knox after having a lot of build-up leading up to the year.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that's a perfect spot. Final one, you mentioned Allen, great segue into it. What's left for him, going into next year? Mistakes to cover up, little things here and there. I mean, the Bills are kind of in a tinker mode, which is good because they are 1 win away from the Super Bowl. But what about Allen specifically? A little bit of that bad Allen came out in the playoff game against the Chiefs, man. In that AFC title game, he was, back to a little bit of hero ball. Maybe some other things that you see inside these games for Allen, where to improve next year the most. Where does he have to improve, Ryan?
Well, I think there's 2 areas. One, taking bad sacks. That was still an issue. You saw him take a bad sack in that Colts game where he fumbled late in the game, but thankfully it was recovered by, I believe, John Feliciano, and they ended up punting. That could have been disastrous because that's right when the Colts got themselves back in the game. They were within 3 there. They would have had the ball around midfield. Obviously, Kansas City game, he took some bad sacks. So, first and foremost, I get that he feels like he can stiff arm anyone, he can get away from anyone. But when you're in a situation like that, sometimes it's just better to throw the ball away. And I get that there's times that he's played hero ball and it's worked out the other way where he's made a huge play downfield. But know when to make those plays and what to do there. And then, 2, the only other thing I would say is Kansas City was the first game where there was, a crowd. And there was an atmosphere there where he had to deal with an away crowd. That is obviously his home crowd for those first 2 games of the playoffs. But they had to go to a silent count, and they didn't look the same. They didn't have enough time up at the line to make adjustments. He has to realize that obviously that next year, most likely at least, fans should be back in the stands in a limited capacity. That can affect him on the road a little bit. So he has to get better in those situations too, in terms of, 1, getting his team up to the line faster, because he did a really nice job this year in terms of reading defenses and what he was seeing. But if you get up there and you wait until there's only 10 seconds left on the clock before you get up to the line, defenses are going to disguise themselves in terms of what they're doing, and that's what's going to lead to mistakes. If you can get up there faster and you can diagnose things, you can snap the ball when you're ready. You can kind of put them on their heels. So that's something else I think he has to get better at.
Ryan Talbot, Buffalo Bills insider, reporter, New York Upstate, at Ryan Talbot Bills. Make sure you get him and Matt Perino, of course, on their Shout Buffalo Bills podcast. It's terrific. All over the major platforms. Download and subscribe and leave those 5-star reviews and feedback. Ryan, really appreciate it. And hey, we got through the entire interview without any train noises in the background.
Yeah, that was a pleasant surprise for once.
Take care, bud.
Hey, you too.
2 amazing guests here on the Bills Brawl, former Bill Corbin Bryant and Ryan Talbot, Bills insider for New York Upstate. I'm Mike Lindsley. Find me on Twitter at Mike L Sports and all over the platforms like TikTok and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and IGTV. All of my Buffalo Bills content is up there as well. You can get us on Twitter at Bills Brawl and at Network Brawl on Twitter as well. Thanks so much for listening. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.